Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Hey,
So
Mark,
some
welcome
yeah,
back. Yeah, I'm enjoying
very
this.
good.
I'm enjoying our conversations. So, if somebody's just popping in right now and they haven't listened to the last 2 weeks of Wednesday Wisdoms, just go back and listen to them. So,
Yes, because, now I was like, "No, Sue, press record, please," because Sue just gave me a crazy good exercise. I was
yeah,
explaining to her.
sit
So
it
the
back up.
episode before that, we talk about gut feeling, we talk about
Hmm.
meditation, we talk about a bunch of things. The link will be in the show notes for sure. And I was saying like, "Yeah, Sue, sometime I have the" we stopped the recording, and I was telling her that I'm an hypersensitive person. I just have the feeling that sometime I'm experiencing life, and the sound system is like too loud. The sound system of my life is just ah, it, so I need to take a moment and shut the fuck up twice a day, go for runs and all that. And Sue started to give me a crazy good exercise that I stopped her and I said, press record and let's take it from here. So let's take this episode from here, because for anyone out there that experience life the way I experience it. I don't know which is I think I
Well,
experience life in a pretty intense way, I
yeah,
think.
you are. Yeah, you are an intense person, Mark. But I think I also want to set it up because we were sharing before I hit record. You have a bucket of things going on in your life that are really intense, that do require you to interact with them. And we all have those things. I'm not going to share what they are unless you want to share what they are, but I'm not going to. But it's some serious shit. Like you get something that you out of nowhere that you didn't know where it was going to come from, and it shows up in your inbox and you go, holy shit, I didn't want that thing. So all of us can relate from that perspective. We have something that will happen in our lives that just came out of nowhere. And then when you pile those experiences or those situations one on top of the other, then it leads into what you were just talking about. It's that feeling that there's a lot of noise going on, there's overwhelm happening.
Yeah,
Right? Did I capture
yeah,
that correctly?
absolutely. It
Yeah. Yeah.
feels
So
sometimes that I live in a junkyard in my head. You know what I
yeah,
mean? There's just
right.
piles of shit, and or sometimes there's some treasure, of course, right?
Right.
But there's so much shit in my head going
Right.
on.
Yeah. And there's things we have to deal with too. I mean, it's
Of
not
course.
just, they're just there. So while you were talking, I asked you, are you a visual learner or are you an auditory learner? And from my teaching background, I realized that people usually fall in one of the two camps where they have to
Mhm.
actually see something in order to process it, or they do a better job hearing it versus seeing it. So you shared with me you're probably more visual. So I said, well, wait a minute. If you've got this noise going on for each of these buckets in your life, in order to take a step back, it's not a denial, but I said the visual part is maybe picturing in your mind different rooms for each of these situations that you
Mm.
have. And then you need to deal with them. So you walk into the room, the noise is loud on that particular issue. Let's call it situation number one. So you walk into behind door number one, situation one, you have to deal with it. Okay, great. It's loud because it's right there in front of you. And the visual part of it is when you're done with that, you turn around, you walk out of the room and you close the door. And closing the door
Mm.
symbolizes silencing, or at least muffling, turning down the noise. Because if you think about it, when you have something happening inside of a room, if you close the door and the door is good enough, you shouldn't really be able to hear what's going on inside
Yeah.
that room. So
Yes.
if you can do that for each of the situations, situation one, two, three, four, five, then it allows your brain that distance between each of those
Yeah.
situations, and it keeps I would think maybe it's would keep you from being too overwhelmed from hearing all
Yeah.
the noise at once. It's like having the TV going, the radio on, and somebody
Yeah.
talking to you at the same time, where you've got these three different types of inputs. Instead, say, "Hey, you know what? Let's pause this for a minute." And it comes back to I was just listening to this morning it was a meditation, kind of like a philosophy thing on multitasking.
Yeah.
Multitasking is a myth.
Of
It
course.
really is.
Yeah.
Multitasking is a myth. And he said what happens is we think we're multitasking, but what's really happening is the brain is being divided between situation one, two, three, four.
Mm.
And because you don't have closure for each of those situations, your brain is still running in the background.
Yeah.
And that's what the multitasking is. Like that's what's happening when you quote unquote multitask. It's really
Wow.
there's no closure for situation number one. You didn't finish it out, and then you jumped right to situation number 2, and
Uh,
when when you're working at something at your desk and you're not in deep focus and you got that phone right next to you, you
mm.
pick up the phone and you go, "Oh, well, let me just check Facebook for 2 seconds," Well, 2
Yeah.
seconds turns into, like, 10 minutes, and then you go back to that thing, and what I was listening to said that the research shows that you're just not as effective. When you're not focused on one thing for a certain amount
Yeah.
of time, you're just not as effective. And I don't want anybody to, say, well, get discouraged or anything, but it's just setting that intent to say, I'm going to work on something for 20 minutes, focus, and that's the only thing you do. You're better off to do that, stop, go to the next thing than to start it, put a snippet of checking your phone in between and then trying to go
Yeah.
back to it again. So I think I
Yeah.
went off
Yeah.
on a tangent there, but the
No, but it's very
situations and
interesting because the
yeah.
way I see it when I say like I'm overwhelmed, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I have the feeling there's a storage unit in my head with no walls. And now what you're
Mm.
telling me to do is, Mark, that's great.
Yeah,
You
make
know,
it
because
walls.
things I'm not a mess, right? I'm I have a business, like I have a
Right.
very
No.
decent life, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
no, and I didn't wanna imply you were a mess,
what's
but
happening is I have piles of junk somewhere, but I didn't take the time to put a wall against this pile of junk in that topic. Let's say, I don't know, I things with my ex-wife that I really get along with, but that's one place, that's one room in my storage unit. And what's happening is my problem is because there was no room before you told me that. I just realized that, and thank you. It's
mhm,
like before there was no room. Yeah, there was order, right? Because the pile are classified in topics and all that, right? The ex-wife, the whatever business, the this
you got a
friend,
bunch
the
of rooms,
kids,
yeah.
right?
Mhm,
Things are pretty organized, but there's no wall, there's no boundaries. And now I just had the key, the missing piece of my puzzle. It's very interesting. Yes.
mhm. Setting boundaries.
Yeah,
That's
setting
what it is, setting
boundaries.
boundaries
Yes,
in your
yes.
situations.
Yeah. Yeah. And say, okay, now it's it's tax season. That's the room of the tax season. That's how we
Yeah,
do tax. Now we do tax. We're in the room of the taxes. So,
right.
right, let's look for the paperwork. Let's do blah, 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 blah. Let's do the thing. We spend 1, 2, 3, 4 days on taxes, filling in things for the IRS and all that. And then we're done. We close the door.
Mhm.
We don't
I
ignore the pile of junk is still there, but at least it's in within a sort of confined place. I really,
right.
really appreciate the advice too.
Yeah, and I like that you actually said storage unit, a big
Yeah,
storage building, because I don't know about where you are. You're over in Spain. I'm here in the United States, and there are storage facilities all over the place. So, what does your storage unit look like? Is your storage unit
yeah.
an outdoor storage unit? Is your storage unit where you're going to store all this stuff? Is it indoor? Is it climate controlled? Is it a newer facility? Is it
Is
an
it, does
older
that? Do
facility?
you have one more stories? Is it
Do
like
you
a
have yeah,
small
do you have
building and things?
multiple
Yeah,
I picture I as we were talking and you said storage unit, I'm picturing mine's climate controlled. It's got at least 3 floors, and there's probably 10 different units on each floor.
ah,
I don't know if they're all filled or not, but they're there, but I love the junk analogy because if you think of storage units, I think there's a program called Storage Unit Junk Wars or something like that, where they go in
yes,
and they go and they find the people who haven't been paying on their units and then they pop them open and people go flock to this stuff just to see what's behind the door. And some of them are filled with junk, pure
yeah,
junk, but some of them have treasures there too. So
uh,
we can have those rooms that are full of junk
yeah,
and we can choose to close them, put a lock on it, and never open it again. Or we can have those rooms, those storage units in our mind that are not locked, that are important, like you said, tax season for I don't know what it is for you guys. It seems like it's just
Same.
seasonal, same thing. Yeah, that's what it is here. By April 15th, you should have it done. It's
Exactly.
only for a couple months. And then when you're done, you close that baby up and you don't look at it until next year. So I love the analogy of the storage unit. I think, and we've got that junk, but then we've got other things, maybe the stuff on the first floor is the stuff you have to tackle first. And then once you clean out that storage unit, something else might come in, maybe not, or maybe you move it to the second floor. Who knows?
What a powerful trick. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
you're welcome, you're welcome. There's a
Wow.
small step for today, Mark. So the
Yeah,
small
thank
step for
you. Thank
today
you,
is
thank
to
you.
compartmentalize our shit together, and if you've got
Yeah.
situations that you need to deal with, just tackle them one at a time and put them on the side when you have to, and you can always go back and revisit it to free up your mind in order to deal with the other things that are going on. But the other thing that you said that I also want to emphasize and really pull out, and I don't want it lost, is you mentioned that sometimes you just want to go run.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to go and out into your garden and, snip the
Yeah.
tomato plants. And what I want to emphasize is that is also a room in the storage unit, and it's a very important one as well,
Mm.
because we all need a break, and it looks different for all of us, and we that brain does need that reset to do something, just anything, whether it's running. For me, it was running for a long time too. I would just
Mhm.
go out and run for hours
Mm.
sometimes. But then again, on the flip side is I had things going on in my life that were very challenging.
Mhm.
So if I didn't have that run, I wouldn't have a way to deal with the other things that were going on. So I think that's the other important thing in our storage unit
Uh,
analogy there. Have a unit or two where it is that self-care unit, a
yeah,
place to go to.
I think I would put my running, meditation, my garden, I think that would be in my lobby. It's the
I
place
like
you need to
that.
walk through to get to the rest
Yes.
in a healthy way. If not, you need to
Yes.
jump through the window of the storage facility and it's all a mess and all that. And you know what's funny is
I like
those
that.
little pillars that you need in life, running, meditating, doing whatever it is. When we get overwhelmed, we start thinking we don't have time for that. Less
Mhm,
time you spend on that, more overwhelmed you feel.
mhm.
More overwhelmed you feel, less you
Yeah,
run, for example.
yeah.
Less you run, more overwhelmed you feel. Like
Yeah, yeah. There's the irony there,
it's a
right? You have to
vicious circle. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah,
force
absolutely.
yourself to do that. You have to force yourself to do the self-care.
Thank you, Sue. That was wonderful.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So our small steps for today are like, buy yourself a storage unit for your brain. That's what it is. Design your lobby and decide what it looks like. So, Mark,
Perfect.
thanks for your time. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this one.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, check out my website, personalcoachfinder.com, and find someone who can help. Remember, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. Take small steps today and make your life awesome, friends.